I was the supreme general of the empire, betrayed and executed by my own soldiers. I woke up 300 years later, as a nobody in the frozen wasteland my empire became. The blade was cold against my neck. Not because it was winter, it was always winter now, the endless freeze that had consumed everything. No, the blade was cold because it was waiting. Patient. Hungry. The same hunger that had eaten our world for 3 years, turning green fields to ice and cities to tombs. Behind me, my own soldiers held me in place. The men I'd led through 100 battles. The men I'd saved, fed, protected. The men who'd called me Father General and meant it. Now they called me traitor. I knelt in the snow of the Courtyard of Heroes. Ironic, since I'd built this courtyard to honor the fallen. Statues of my greatest soldiers lined the walls, frozen now, their bronze faces streaked with ice. My statue stood among them. I'd always hated that statue. Too proud. Too certain. The face of a man who thought he could save everyone. I'd been wrong. Any last words? Captain Ryu Min-suk stepped before me, face unreadable. He'd been my second for 15 years. My right hand, the closest thing I had to a son. I'd found him as a boy, orphaned by the first winter, hiding in a burned-out village. I'd fed him, trained him, promoted him, watched him become the finest officer in the Imperial Army, loved him like the son I never had. Now he held the order for my execution. Just one. I met his eyes. Why? He didn't flinch. The Empire needs a new direction. New leadership. Your time is over, Father General. Father General, the title sounded like poison in his mouth. The Empire will fall without me, I said. You know this. The cold is winning. The food is running out. Without my strategies. Your strategies failed. His voice was flat. 3 more cities lost last month. Thousands dead. The council decided someone else should try. The council. I laughed, bitter, broken. Those parasites have never held a sword. They've never lost a single soldier. They sit in their warm rooms and make decisions while good men freeze. The council made a decision about you. He nodded to the executioner. Any last words for your men, General? They're listening. I looked past him at the soldiers who'd once followed me. Young faces, mostly. Recruits who'd joined after the freeze started, who'd never known the Empire at its height. They looked scared, uncertain, like they didn't know why they were here. I knew why. They were following orders. Just like I'd taught them. Run, I said. When this is over, run. Find somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. The Empire is dying, and it'll take you with it if you let it. Some of them shifted uncomfortably. Ryu's jaw tightened. Enough. He stepped back. Do it. The blade rose. I looked at the frozen sky one last time, gray, empty, endless, and thought about all the things I'd never done. All the people I'd failed. All the warmth I'd never feel again. I thought about Ryu as a boy, laughing in the training yard. I thought about the soldiers who died under my command. I thought about the empire I'd spent my life building, crumbling into ice. And I thought about regret. Not for my strategies, they were sound. Not for my leadership. I'd given everything. Regret for the choices I hadn't made. The forgiveness I hadn't offered. The love I hadn't let myself feel. Then the blade fell. I died slowly. That's the thing about execution by cold steel. It's not quick. Not when you've trained your body to fight through any injury, to cling to consciousness long after others would have let go. I felt the blade separate flesh, felt my own blood steam in the frozen air, felt my body crumple into snow that should have been warm with my life. Ryu watched me fall. His face never changed. Then I was gone. But death wasn't the end. It was a door, a passage, a cold so deep it wasn't cold anymore, just absence. I floated in darkness for what felt like years, centuries, eternities. I saw the empire fall, not all at once, but piece by piece. Cities freezing. People starving. The council that had killed me dying in their warm rooms when the geothermal systems finally failed. I saw Ryu become the leader they'd wanted. Saw him fail. Saw him kneel in the same courtyard of heroes, surrounded by corpses, and weep for what he'd done. I saw the centuries pass. New cities built on old ruins. New wars fought for scraps of warmth. The memory of the empire becoming legend, then myth, then forgotten. And through it all I waited. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I only knew it wasn't time yet. Then, 300 years after my death, I felt something. A pull. A warmth in the endless cold. A boy, dying in the snow, reaching out for someone, anyone, to save him. I reached back. I woke to cold. Not the cold of death. I knew that cold. Had felt it take me. This was different. Living cold. Breathing cold. The cold of a world that refused to die. I opened my eyes to a frozen wasteland. Snow everywhere. Ice everywhere. A sky the color of old bone. And around me, a handful of people huddled around a dying fire, staring at me with something between hope and desperation. "He's awake," a voice whispered. A girl, young, maybe 15, wrapped in rags. The fever broke. "He's actually awake." I tried to sit up. Failed. My body was wrong, weak, small, young. I looked at my hands. A boy's hands. Maybe 17, if that. "Where am I?" My voice cracked. Not my voice. Someone else's. The frozen north. An older man knelt beside me, face lined with cold and hunger. "You're in our village. We found you in the snow 3 days ago, half dead. Didn't think you'd make it." Village. I looked around. Saw no village. Just ruins. Collapsed buildings buried in ice. What's left of it? The man's eyes were grim. The cold took everyone else. Just us now. A handful of survivors, waiting to die. I stared at him, at the others, at the frozen wasteland around us. And slowly, piece by piece, memory returned. The execution. Ryu's face. The blade. 300 years of watching the world freeze. I was General Kong Doyan, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Forces. Betrayed and executed 3 centuries ago. And somehow, impossibly, I was alive again. The survivors who'd saved me were 6 in total. Suk was the oldest, 60, maybe, though the cold made everyone look older. He'd been a farmer before the freeze deepened, before the crops failed, before his family scattered. Now, he was just a man waiting to die, keeping the younger ones alive out of habit. Nari was 25, sharp-eyed and practical. She'd been a hunter, tracking the few animals that still survived in the wastes. She watched me like I was prey, something to be studied, understood, either trusted or discarded. The 3 children, 8, 10, 12, were orphans of the freeze, clinging to each other and to anyone who offered warmth. They didn't speak much. Children in the wastes learned silence early. And Hannah, 15 years old, with eyes that had seen too much. "She was the one who'd found me," she said. "Dragged me from the snow when the others wanted to leave me. Sat with me through the fever, feeding me broth, keeping me warm. You're different now," she said on the 7th night. We were huddled around the fire. What was left of it? The others slept. She watched me, with those 2 old eyes. "Different how?" "The way you move. The way you look at things." She tilted her head. "When we found you, you were just a boy. Dying like the rest of us. Now you watch everything. Like you're planning. Like you've seen this all before." I said nothing. "I'm not complaining." She pulled her rags tighter. "We need someone who plans. Someone who sees. Suk is kind, but he's old. He's waiting to die. She met my eyes. "You look like you're waiting to fight." I almost smiled. This girl, this child of the wastes, had more perception than half my former officers. "Maybe I am." "Then fight." She leaned forward. "Fight for us. We're all going to die anyway. What's the harm in trying?" I looked at the others, sleeping children, exhausted adults, dying hope. Then I looked at the frozen wasteland beyond our pathetic shelter. 300 years ago, I'd commanded armies, led them through worse than this, built strategies that saved millions. I could do it again. "Tomorrow," I said, "we move." The journey took 2 weeks. I led them through the frozen wastes with knowledge I shouldn't have. Old trade routes buried under ice, Abandoned shelters I remembered from maps 3 centuries old, hunting grounds where animals still survived. They followed without question, too desperate to wonder how a 17-year-old orphan knew so much. On the third day, Nari pulled me aside. "You know things," she said flatly. "Things a boy from the Waste should know. Where these routes are, what's ahead, how to find water under the ice." "Yes." "Are you going to explain?" "Not yet." She studied me for a long moment. Then, "I don't trust you, but I trust that you'll keep us alive longer than I could. That's enough for now." "It's enough for me too." She nodded once, sharply, and rejoined the others. On the 7th day, we found a bunker. It was exactly where I remembered, an old military installation built during the Empire's height, designed to survive anything. The entrance was buried under ice, but I found it, forced it open, led them inside. Warmth. Actual warmth. Geothermal systems still functioning after 300 years. Supplies still intact.
Space.
Safety.
Life. They cried.
All of them. Even Sook, who'd given up on hope years ago. I stood apart, watching, and felt something I hadn't felt since my execution. Purpose. I told them that night. We sat in the bunker's main chamber, warm for the first time in years, bellies full of food that wasn't frozen. The children slept in a corner, exhausted by safety. Sook, Nari, and Hannah faced me across a table covered with maps I'd found in the archives. "That's not all," I said. "There's more. A city. The last warm place in the world." Hannah's eyes widened. "The capital? That's just a legend. Stories the old people tell." "It's real." I spread the maps. "It's called New Haven now. Built on the ruins of the old imperial capital. 300 years ago, it was the center of the empire. Now it's the last refuge of civilization." "How do you know this?" Sook's voice was careful. "How do you know any of this?" I looked at him, at all of them. Farmers, hunters, orphans. People who'd survived the end of the world through stubbornness and luck. They deserved the truth. "My name isn't Jay." I stood. "Jay died in the snow. I woke in his body. My name is Kong Doyan. I was Supreme General of the Imperial Empire 300 years ago. My soldiers executed me for failing to stop the freeze. And now I'm back." Silence. Nari's hand moved to her knife. Sook's face went pale. Hannah just stared. "The general," she whispered. "The one in the old stories. The one who lost the war. The one who failed." I nodded. "The one whose betrayers built New Haven. The one who watched the empire fall from the dark between lives." I looked at each of them. "I'm going to that city. I'm going to find out who rules it now. And I'm going to decide what kind of justice 300 years deserves." More silence. Then Sook laughed, a rusty, broken sound. "Boy, if you're crazy, you're the most useful crazy person I've ever met. If you're not..."
He shook his head.
"Either way, I'm too old to care."
"Lead."
"We'll follow." Nari's hand moved away from her knife. "The maps are real. The bunker is real. That's enough for now." Hannah said nothing, just watched me with those two old eyes, like she was seeing something no one else could. Word spread. In the Wastes, information traveled like cold, slow at first, then faster, then unstoppable. A bunker with food. A leader who knew the way. A chance. Survivors came to us in ones and twos, then dozens. Families who'd been wandering for years. Hunters who'd given up on finding prey. Children who'd forgotten what warmth felt like.
We took them in.
Fed them. Armed them. Trained them. I taught them what I taught my soldiers 300 years ago, how to move in the cold, how to conserve energy, how to fight when fighting was necessary. They learned quickly. Desperation is a better teacher than patience. By the time we reached the outskirts of New Haven, we were 40 strong. The capital rose from the ice like a dream. Walls of black stone, heated from within by ancient technology. Towers reaching toward a sky that never cleared. Lights. Actual lights. Glowing from windows that weren't boarded against the cold. The first lights I'd seen in 300 years that weren't fire or dying. Guards patrolled the walls. They looked warm. Federal safe. Behind me, my survivors stared at the city like it was heaven. Remember, I said quietly, whatever happens, stay together. Don't show fear. Don't show weakness. And if they don't let us in? Nari asked. I looked at the gates, at the guards, at the city that had been built on my betrayal. Then we find another way. The guards at the gate looked at us with contempt. Refugees. Scavengers. Nothing. State your business. One of them droned. Shelter, I said.
Warmth.
The same as everyone. He laughed. Everyone doesn't get in. Only those with something to offer. Skills. Labor. Information. He looked us over. You lot look like you've got nothing. I stepped closer. Tell your commander that someone wants to discuss the Eastern Front strategies. The ones that failed 300 years ago. The ones that lost the war. The guard's smile faded. What did you say? Just deliver the message. He'll understand. We waited 3 days. 3 days in the shadow of the walls, watching others be admitted or rejected. 3 days watching our people grow weaker, colder, more desperate. 3 days wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. On the 4th day, the gates opened. A woman stood there, tall, severe, in a commander's uniform that made my heart stop. Because I recognized that uniform. I designed it. Which of you sent the message about the Eastern Front? She demanded. I stepped forward. I did. She studied me. Young face, worn clothes, nothing special. Then her eyes narrowed. Come with me. Alone. The commander's quarters were warm, luxurious. Everything the frozen wastes weren't. She sat behind a desk, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. The Eastern Front strategies, she said finally. Only one person ever understood them fully. General Kong Doyan. He's been dead 300 years. I know. How do you know about them? I met her eyes. Because I wrote them.
Silence.
Long, heavy. Then she laughed, not mocking, but disbelieving. You're a boy. 17, maybe. The general died before your great-grandparents were born. 300 years ago. Executed by his own soldiers. Captain Ryu led them. The council ordered it. I held her gaze. Ryu had a daughter. She would have been about your age when he died. She had your eyes. The commander's face went white. No one knows that. No one outside the family knows that. I know because I was there. I watched Ryu order my death. I saw his face when he did it. And I've spent 300 years waiting to understand why. She stood slowly, walked around the desk, stopped before me. My name is Ryu Sora, she whispered. Captain Ryu was my great-great-grandfather. I've studied your strategies my whole life. They're the only reason I survived the purge when the old families fell. She swallowed. They're also the reason my family died. The council executed them 50 years ago for crimes against the state, the crimes that started with your death. I stared at her, the descendant of my betrayer. A woman shaped by choices made centuries before her birth. Why are you telling me this? Because I've spent my whole life wondering, was he right? My great-great-grandfather? Was the general really a traitor, or was he just in the way? Her eyes searched mine. And now you're here, looking like a boy, talking like a legend, and I don't know what to believe. I had no answer for her. 300 years of hate, 300 years of watching the world freeze, 300 years of wondering what I'd done wrong. And now this. A woman who'd suffered because of my death, who'd survived because of my strategies, who looked at me like I might be her salvation or her damnation. The freeze is spreading, I said finally. The bunkers won't last forever. New Haven won't last forever. Everyone knows it. Everyone feels it. Sora nodded slowly. The geothermal systems are failing. We've been losing ground for decades. The council hides it, but the people know. They're scared. They should be. The cold doesn't stop. It doesn't negotiate. It just takes. Is that what you came to tell me? That we're all going to die?
No.
I met her eyes. I came to tell you that I know how to stop it. Her breath caught.
How?
The old geothermal maps. The ones the council destroyed when they took power. They showed warm pockets deeper than anything we've tapped. If we could reach them. The Eastern Front. Her eyes widened. The reason you kept pushing east, even when everyone said it was hopeless. You weren't trying to win a war. You were trying to save us. I nodded slowly. The war was lost before it started. I knew that. But the warm pockets, they could have given us centuries. Maybe forever. The council didn't want forever. They wanted power. And I was in the way. Sora was quiet for a long moment.
Then, the maps.
Do you know where they are? In the old bunkers. The ones the council sealed after my death. I pulled a scroll from my pack, one I'd found in the bunker where we first sheltered. I've already found some. Enough to know we can reach them. Enough to know we have a chance. She took the scroll, studied it. Her hands were shaking. If this is real, if this actually works. It will work. I'd spent 300 years planning it. But I can't do it alone. I need someone inside New Haven. Someone with authority. Someone who knows how the city works. She looked up at me. You need a descendant of your betrayer. I need someone who wants to save her people more than she wants to save herself. We stared at each other across 300 years of history. A general betrayed by his son. A granddaughter shaped by choices she didn't make. Do you trust me? She asked. I trust that you want to survive. That's enough to start. She nodded slowly. Then let's start. Sora brought me before the council the next day. They were exactly what I expected. Old men and women who'd never held a sword, never faced the cold, never lost anyone they loved. They sat in their warm chamber, draped in furs and jewels, and looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off their boots. This is the boy who claims to know the old strategies? The council leader's voice dripped with contempt. He looks like a beggar. He knows things no beggar could know. Sora's voice was steady. The Eastern Front. The geothermal maps. The bunkers sealed after the general's death. Old stories. Old lies. Another council member waved a hand dismissively. The general was a traitor. Everything he touched turned to ice. I stepped forward. The general's strategies saved the empire for 30 years. His geothermal research could have saved it forever. The only thing that turned to ice was the council's courage after he was gone. Silence. The council leader's face went red. How dare you? Dare? I laughed. I've been in the wastes. I've seen what your leadership has done. People freezing. Children starving. An entire civilization collapsing while you sit here in your warm room and pretend everything is fine. You will show respect.
No.
I stepped closer. I'll show you the truth. The geothermal maps exist. The warm pockets are real. And if you don't act, New Haven will fall. Just like the Empire fell. Just like every city that trusted leaders who cared more about power than survival. More silence. The council members looked at each other, uncertain for the first time. Sora stepped beside me. I've seen the maps. I've verified the coordinates. We have a window, maybe a year, maybe less, to reach the warm pockets before the geothermal systems fail completely. If this is some trick, it's not a trick. It's survival. She met the council leader's eyes. And, if you won't act, I will. With or without your permission. The room erupted. Shouting, arguing, accusations. But Sora stood firm beside me, and I saw something in her face that I hadn't seen in 300 years. Hope. The council granted Sora command of the expedition. Not because they believed, because they were scared. The people were restless, the systems were failing, and they needed someone to blame if things went wrong. Sora didn't care. She wanted to save her city. The rest was noise. We spent months preparing. Training soldiers who'd never faced the wastes. Gathering supplies that hadn't been used in generations. Studying maps that had been sealed for centuries. I worked alongside her, teaching what I knew, learning what had changed. 300 years had transformed the world I'd known. New threats, new dangers, new ways to die. But the fundamentals hadn't changed. Cold was still cold. Hunger was still hunger. And people were still the same mixture of courage and fear, hope and despair. The night before we left, Sora found me in the archives. I was studying maps of the old Eastern Front, trying to remember paths I'd walked 3 centuries ago. The memories were faded, blurred by time and death, but the bones were still there, still solid. "You're not sleeping," she said. "Neither are you." She sat beside me, staring at the maps. "My father used to talk about you. Before he died, he said you were the only leader who ever cared about soldiers more than glory. The only one who remembered that wars weren't won by strategies, they were won by people." I looked at her. "Your father knew me? He studied you. Every battle. Every campaign. He said you were a genius, but more than that, you were good. That you always chose the hard path because it was the right one." She swallowed. "He said the empire died when you did." I had no words. 300 years of hate, and now this, the granddaughter of my betrayer, telling me her father mourned me. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need to know." She met my eyes. "Was he right? Were you good? Or was my father just another fool who believed the stories?" I thought about my life, the battles, the choices, the people I'd saved, and the people I'd failed. The boy I'd loved like a son, who'd ordered my death. "I try to be good," I said finally. "I tried to save everyone. That was the problem. I tried to do it alone. I didn't let anyone help. I didn't trust anyone to carry the weight." I looked at her. "Don't make my mistake. Don't try to save the world by yourself." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I won't. I have you." I almost smiled. "You have everyone. Your soldiers. Your people. Your city. Use them. Trust them. Let them help you carry the weight." She nodded slowly. "Then, do you regret it? Everything that happened?" I thought about the question. Really thought. I regret that I didn't understand Ryu. That I didn't see his fear, his doubt, his need to be something more than my shadow. I regret that I made him feel small, instead of making him feel equal. I looked at Sora, his descendant, his legacy. I regret that I never told him I loved him. Sora's eyes filled with tears. He knew. He had to know. Maybe. I stood. But I should have said it. Don't make that mistake either. Say the things that need to be said. Before it's too late. She stood too. I will. We walked out of the archives together, into a city that was waiting to be saved. The journey east took 3 months. 3 months of frozen wasteland, of storms that could freeze blood in veins, of paths that had been buried for centuries. 3 months of losing people, of almost dying, of fighting for every step forward. Sora led with a strength that reminded me of myself. Young, fierce, unwilling to stop.
But she was better than me.
She let people in. Let them help. Let them carry the weight. I watched her become something I never was. A leader who didn't need to be alone. On the 92nd day, we found the warm pocket. It was exactly where the map said it would be. A cave system deep beneath the ice, where geothermal vents heated the earth to something almost like summer. Water flowed. Moss grew. Life. My survivors fell to their knees.
Some cried.
Some laughed. Some just stared, unable to believe what they were seeing. I stood with Sora at the entrance, watching her people find hope. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it."
No.
I shook my head. "You did it. I just showed you the way." She looked at me, really looked. "What now? What do you do when you've saved the world?" I thought about it. 300 years of watching, waiting, planning. 300 years of being a ghost in a boy's body. "I don't know," I admitted. "I never thought this far." "Then stay." She grabbed my hand. "Stay here. Help us build something new. Something better than what came before." I looked at the warm pocket, the survivors, the future. Then I looked at Sora, the descendant of my betrayer, the woman who'd trusted a ghost, the leader who'd saved her people. "Okay," I said. "I'll stay." That was 10 years ago. Today, I'm old. Not in body. Jay's body is still young, still strong, still carrying me through a world that's slowly warming. But in spirit, I've lived 300 years and more. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've seen the world freeze and begin to thaw. I've seen Sora become the leader I never was. Patient. Trusting. Good. She doesn't need me anymore. But she keeps me around anyway.
For the stories, she says.
For the memories. Sometimes, I walk the tunnels of the warm pocket, watching the moss grow, feeling the heat rise from the earth. I think about Ryu and the Empire and all the things I should have said. I think about Jay, the boy who died in the snow, whose body I borrowed. I hope he found peace somewhere. I hope my soul didn't push us out. I hope he let me in, knowing what I could do with his life. And I think about the future, the world that's slowly healing, the people who will never know the cold we survived. They won't know my name. They won't know the general, or the empire, or the choices that ended it. But they'll have warmth. They'll have hope. They'll have a chance. That's enough. The general's letter asterisk asterisk. Asterisk to whoever finds this, in whatever world comes after asterisk. Asterisk, my name is Kong Doyan. I was Supreme General of the Imperial Empire 300 years ago. I was executed by my own soldiers, betrayed by the boy I loved like a son, forgotten by the world I tried to save. Asterisk. Asterisk, but I came back.
I don't know why.
Maybe the universe gives second chances to those who need them most. Maybe Jay, the boy whose body I borrowed, needed me as much as I needed him. Maybe some debts are too large to be paid in one lifetime. Asterisk. Asterisk, I spent 300 years hating Ryu, the boy who ordered my death, the son who chose power over love. I thought he was a monster. I thought his betrayal was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Asterisk. I was wrong. Asterisk, Ryu wasn't a monster. He was a boy who was scared. A soldier who thought he could do better. A man who made a terrible choice because he didn't know any other way. He was wrong. But he wasn't evil. Asterisk. Asterisk, I wish I'd told him that. Before the blade fell. Before he had to live with what he'd done. I wish I'd said, I love you. I'm proud of you. You don't have to be me to be enough. Asterisk. Asterisk, I can't tell him now. He's been dead for centuries. But I can tell you, don't wait. Don't wait to say the things that need to be said. Don't wait to forgive the people who need forgiving. Don't wait to love the people you love. Asterisk. Asterisk, because the cold comes for everyone. The freeze takes everything. And when you're kneeling in the snow, waiting for the blade to fall, the only thing that matters is the words you said, and the words you didn't. Asterisk.
Say them.
Before it's too late. General Kong Doyan. Year 10 after the thaw.